What's, if there is one, the set that you are most proud of?
Good question.
But I know that AE has something that will have a huge impact in myself and in my results.
This is years of looking at people from point A and then watching the whole process down to point B.
Bienvenido a este podcast, primer podcast en persona. Entonces, ahora vamos a empezar la conversación, vamos a cambiar el idioma a inglés, pero vas a tener todo el podcast subtitulado para que lo puedas entender bien. Así que el invitado de hoy es un invitado muy especial, Mr. A.J. Morris. How are you, man? Huge pleasure to have you here.
I'm very good, buddy. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it a lot. I've obviously followed your podcast and what you've been doing, and it's a pleasure to be on.
Yeah, I told you before that I'm really excited for this. Actually, also for me, it's the first podcast doing in person.
Okay, yeah.
The first one in English. So yeah, it's like you have to be the first guest in here. So it's a huge pleasure to have you here.
Appreciate
And I think that we can start just a quick recap on who you are, who is A.J. Morris, and yeah, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, like I said, thank you very much for having me on the podcast. I hope that anyone that is listening that is new to myself or new to following me, that you enjoy it. So yeah, a little bit about myself. So I'm 26 years old, almost 27, and I've been in the bodybuilding industry since about 2014. So I first got into bodybuilding after a short time in motorsport. So from about the age of 8 until 16, motorsport was my thing, my life. That's where I wanted to progress. That's where I wanted to have a career in. And that kind of stopped because of financial circumstances primarily. So, you know, my next thing was like, okay, now what can I be competitive in? What can I do that's going to fire me up and get me out of bed in the morning? Because that motorsport was that thing for me for so long. Yeah. It kind of felt like I'd lost an aspect of my identity. I had to identify myself with something else. So bodybuilding was that thing. It became that thing. Partially just down to being really involved in the fitness aspect of the motorsport. So I love doing the training. I love doing the gym sessions, even the aerobic sessions. I love the challenge. Mm-hmm. So for me, weight training was actually the fun bit. So more of that was cool by me. So you know, I actually think when I look back to sort of how I got attached to bodybuilding in itself, and then in the start was probably like just looking at like a Flex magazine. Mm-hmm. I used to work in a Sainsbury's supermarket, and you know, when I was sorting out shelves or something, I'd see a Flex magazine and I'd kind of look through it. Kai would be there, Phil, etc. at the time, and I'd kind of think, oh, okay, that's these guys are pretty cool, and I'd followed the whole like the videos on muscular development, watch them train, and that was kind of like I think my first sort of taste of bodybuilding. Mm-hmm. And then, like I said, so 2014 was like my first sort of year of competition as a teenager. And that really sort of got me aware of what was available for me in the natural scene, because up to that point, I primarily was following assisted bodybuilders. I was very aware that they were assisted. So a few in my gym that I talked to, and they'd tell me, look, if you're going to do a prep, do it first naturally and just see how you get along, see how you enjoy it. And then, from there, you can obviously, if you decide to progress to the assisted realm, you could do that. But yeah, I love that first prep, and I went to a natural show. My first show was a BNBF Midland show in 2014, and yeah, I just saw some physiques there that were incredible. Yeah. A huge amount more muscle than I thought would be achievable naturally. Great condition, and something that always stood out to me was that how complete and like granite hard a natural physique could look. There was levels of detail that I almost thought I hadn't seen before. Glutes peeled, rear delts, upper back, everything sort of, detailed, crisp. Yeah. That I'd not really seen too often. I'd seen, the massive guys, and even in the gym, I'd seen, dudes that were, 240, 250. Mm-hmm. I'd been exposed to that quite young. Yeah. And, these guys that I saw on stage that were probably closer to like 180, 190, in similar condition, if not better condition, were people that I was instantly looking up to. So yeah, from there really, like I guess just to give it like a short synopsis as to how I got into, you know, coaching from that point, because obviously people, if you know of me, you'll know that my coaching is my main thing. So coaching for me really was just a fact that I was training with a training partner called Marcus, and he wanted to do a show. And I said to him, look, you know, like I'm not the guy, you know, I'm too young. I've only done one prep. You know, these usual like ethical things that you would say to a friend when they're asking you, you know, for advice, in terms of a contest prep. So I said, look, you know, I can train with you. We'll still train, but you need to get a coach for the prep. So I referred him to the coach that I had for my first prep, the only coach that I really ever had, directly, so to speak. I've learned from a lot of mentors, but I've only had one direct coach. And and he came back to me like a week later, and he was like, you know what, like I don't want anyone else to prep me but you. You know, so
it needs to be you.
Yeah, it's like you haven't got a choice.
Yeah.
I'm either not gonna do it, or you're gonna prep me. So the next year, 2015, we both dieted down. So I did another prep, and he did a prep himself, and he did very, very well. And from that point, you know, halfway through the prep that year in 2015, I was in probably the worst spot I've ever been in with like my mental health and my direction in life, funnily enough, which is weird when you think about it.
Yeah.
Because
That was you with 20 years or 18 years or so.
So 2015, it's a good question. I was
20.
19.
Yeah.
Yeah, 19. Because it was my last year competing as a teenager.
Okay.
So I must have been 19. I mean, you could quite easily do the math, but it's not going to be my strong suit on a podcast.
It's not our thing.
So yeah, I think I must have been 19, and so yeah, like I said, you know, from a sort of like direction standpoint, I was really, and I have a lot of clients in similar situations at the moment that are young, that like look up to people, and they see these big businesses that they've built, or this life that they've built, and you know where they're at. I'm like, things can change so quickly, dude. You know, things can like turn around like that. So for me at that point, I was working in a estate agency, just like selling houses, but I was really at the bottom layer. So I was being taught down to, and you know, like this hierarchy of the job that I was in, I hated it. I quickly learned from a young age. I say I didn't really like being told what to do, and that is true. I don't really like being told what to do. I like being told what to do, and I like learning and being given direction by people I admire and I appreciate, but not from people that just annoyed me, you know? Or I felt like I didn't have any reason to like look up to these people, because I didn't want to be like the manager of an office for an estate agency. I didn't want to be that. So I had no relationship or identity related to that person, so I couldn't really, you know, take advice or take criticism from these people. So I was having a harder time there, and I just remember listening to a load of stuff from Gary Vee, you know, a load of his podcasts, a load of his content, saying, you know, if you want to, you know, do something you love and you'll be passionate about, you know, here's how to do it. I read his book, which is Jab, 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 Right Hook, which is all about, you know, marketing, social media, content creation to, you know, basically find your niche and get people to you. And that's what I did. You know, I just hammered social media with Marcus, pretty much my only client. I showed Gloss the other day a list of my clients in 2015. Like, it was like 5-6 people all paying me about £25 a month. And then, you know, I just quickly started to gain this notoriety as like someone that was, you know, a young coach. I invited other coaches onto my podcast. I invited other teenage bodybuilders, younger bodybuilders on my podcast. So I had both. I had educators on my podcast, and I had people that were doing the do, you know, but also were kind of like my niche. And then it just grew from there. So, you know, and then that's, you know, like I said, this is a long story, but that from 2015 till now has been my identity, and natural bodybuilder, both competitive and obviously from a coaching standpoint. You know, those two things are, you know, if you were to ask me which one is more important, I'd say that they hold equal importance in terms of my attention and like what I love to do. I love training, I love being on stage myself, but I equally get almost just as much satisfaction from seeing a client, you know, succeed or win a show, win a pro card, or achieve their goals. You know, that to me is also like something that I'm constantly chasing, something I'm constantly thinking, how can I get this person that's come to me with this goal? How can I get them to, you know, that goal, you know, point B? So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And that's great. And it's funny because before the interview, I was like, okay, I'm going to look for 4 to 5 questions.
Yeah.
And in this first question, like you touch all of the questions that I wanted to talk to you. Like you like slightly touch some points that I would love to go into those because I think they are really interesting. And I also want to, like, for the people listening to contextualize, like, how did you and I met?
Yeah.
And because I'm saying this because obviously, like, for me now, we are here with you. Los is here behind the camera in the crowd.
In the crowd.
Yeah.
We've got a huge crowd.
Yeah. And like 2 years ago, I was looking at your videos, looking at Jordan, looking at Cuba, and now I'm here, like living here, training here. And also, like, for me, this means a lot. And it's a moment of like, okay, we are like we are doing it. So we are like more like we are living the life that we want.
Yeah.
That in those years we were looking like, okay, this is so far away, we want to get there.
Yeah.
And now we are living the life that we want. Yeah. And that also I say this because this takes me to the moment where I meet you in the gym. That was the first time I came to Ultraflex with Alex.
Yes. Yeah.
I remember that we were going to do cardio, just cardio. And you and Los were coming out of the posing room.
Yeah.
And this is something that obviously the people listening will relate to. Like when you have following someone from the social media and you see the first time in person, it's a moment of like, okay, so it's real, you know? So it's like you can see the person in the videos, but it's not the same looking the person in the videos than really like looking the person in real life.
Of course.
It's like, okay, it's there. And this is also something that I think it's very important. As you said, being around people that was better than you and people of really high level, because what I've realized being here is that it's very different seeing a huge lift from the social media than seeing in person.
Oh yeah.
Or seeing like in the same machine where you are doing it. It's like, okay, I have 5 plates here. This dude has 6 plates.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is this? You know? So that's also like a huge drive factor for you to keep growing and to keep evolving.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just to touch on that, like, you got yourself in that position.
Yeah.
You got yourself in the conversation. Mm-hmm. And this is something that I have heard Jordan say quite a few times where, you know, people that try to chase being seen or being heard or being in the conversation are the ones that actually struggle to get there because, you know, people like yourself, people like Alex, you just work. You just worked away pretty much in silence, you know, until you got to a point where you come to Ultraflex and then you're pretty much straight in the conversation. We almost like straight away kind of know who you are. Yeah. We build a relationship. We see your pages. We see the work. Yeah. Just loads of work. Loads of work. No like, oh, shout out this or follow me this or anything like that. You're not chasing it. It's like, it was the exact same thing when I've got to train with Jordan once. And I told Loz the other day, like, and this is not a lie. This is not like me making something up, but he messaged me. He said, you know, how do you fancy training legs? And I thought it was a joke. You know, I at the time I literally took like half an hour to respond because I was like, serious?
Yeah.
I was like, really?
Like double checking.
I was like double checking the message. And like obviously up until that point, like I'd been, you know, wearing his jumpers, training hard, you know, referencing him if I said something that he said, looking up to him. Going to his seminars, turning up. Mm-hmm. I went to a couple of his seminars and I'd sit at the front row and I'd ask questions, you know, and things like that. Like then it gets you in the conversation because it's not just, okay, you know, you're following this person. It's like you're doing the work that they'd appreciate.
Yeah.
So then, like, when, you know, we come to a point where we're like, you know, we want to train together, of course. You know, of course, it's not even a discussion.
Yeah.
Because you've already done the work, you've already got into that position where things like that just come to you. But I think a lot of people need to hear that, because a lot of people are like, well, how can I be in that circle? How can I get in that position where these people not necessarily recognize me? Like, we're not chasing being recognized, we're not chasing approval or anything, but we are trying to get into a position where these people will give you their time, you know. So if you come to me, like you messaged me, you know, a while back about, you know, keeping an eye, having a look occasionally during the prep, it's like, of course.
Yeah.
But any random person that I've never seen do the work, or that I've not seen put in the years of dedication, you know, that's not something that I would just haphazardly say, okay, yes, of course, you know.
Yeah.
So yes, I think that's a really important thing for people to hear.
Yeah. I also think the key there is from where you do it. Because I remember and nowadays it's the same, like from knowing the work, I also value a lot your work and your time.
Yeah.
And what you do. So it's like from me valuing your work and other people's work, almost like that creates also a relationship in terms of like both respect and both value for each other work and each other time, which is like, for example, when I first saw you, we didn't tell you anything.
Yeah.
And maybe it was like 5-6 days until we tell you something, because it was like, okay, you are training. If I were training, I wouldn't want to like someone strange to me come in and say hello because I'm training.
Yeah.
So it's like, I understand that.
Exactly.
And I'm going to look for the moment where I can say hello.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And it's like you have just a mutual respect, and that's because you've developed a knowledge of the way that, you know, I approach things, and then I know that if you aren't the person that's going to come up to me and have a half an hour discussion in the middle of my training session, then you're also the person that probably wants to train really hard and wants to focus on their own sessions and doesn't want to be distracted and wants to maximize everything that they're doing. So yeah, no, I think when you're following someone and you form kind of like a like-mindedness with them, it's very important, if you ever do, you know, see them or get to meet them or whatever, that you have that mutual respect. 100%.
Yeah. Great. And related to this, like obviously nowadays you are really into bodybuilding, really especially into natural bodybuilding.
Yeah.
What does bodybuilding mean to you?
I think bodybuilding just means, you know, the continual pursuit for progression. You know, that to me is what bodybuilding is. You know, it's not a placing, it's not a trophy, it's not a certain level of muscle mass. You know, it's really not, because if we say it's a certain level of muscle mass, if we say it's a placing, then we get to a point at which bodybuilding is completed.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, bodybuilding is never completed. Yeah. You know, there's a reason there's gym pins out there. We can get pin extenders for that hack squat. You know. Yeah, the plates can always be added.
Yeah.
You know, muscle can always be added. That is a brilliant plug for a gym pin, by the way. If I want to put a link below. So yeah, no, honestly, like, you know, bodybuilding is just the pursuit for progression. And the brilliant thing is the, you know, bodybuilding progression that you have on the gym floor is just, it directly cross transfers into everything you do in your life. So you'll notice when you take bodybuilding seriously as an athlete, you then start to take everything else seriously, and you start to question whether your life is set up for bodybuilding. So is your routine good? Is your time management good? Is your job making you happy? Because you know that stress has an impact on bodybuilding. So we see a lot of people that start off bodybuilding and they'll start off in a specific job that maybe doesn't make them happy. They'll start off with a routine that's rubbish, and they'll suddenly just get better and better and better and better at everything. And then you see a lot of bodybuilders, or even like a lot of, like, you know, CEOs or business people that, you know, they have something about their life which keeps them very, very structured. You know, bodybuilding keeps you amazingly structured. You know, it's why I think there at some point there is a divide between whether a bodybuilder that has this passion for progression, there is a divide, there is a split where you inevitably, some bodybuilders will have to make a decision between the passion they have for progress within business or the passion they have for progress within their athletic endeavors. And like you've seen some people go down that divide, and they'll go down more of the business front, and their athletic journey will cease a little bit. And I've talked about that on podcasts before, like where people ask, do you think that at any point you'll stop being an athlete and you'll just, go down the business route? For me, I'll always have both avenues open. I'm highly confident of that, because I know that me as an athlete makes me mentally healthier, physically healthier. Everything's better. I respect the ones that go down the pure business route and back down on some of the athletic endeavors. But for me, what makes me happy is having both. But the main thing is that, like I said, bodybuilding just adds so much to your life. And then the people that do go down the sole business route, I mean, man, some of the businesses that people can build off the back of that is nuts. Crazy. Some of like the biggest businesses in the fitness industry were initially built by people that just liked bodybuilding, had structure, applied it to their lives, found ways to progress, found gaps. It's why Jordan, and Corin built one of the biggest platforms, if not the biggest membership platform in the world for bodybuilding, is because they were passionate about progress. So they found a way to progress, and they've got what they've got today. So and they're still going. So and that's the thing. I don't think they'll ever stop growing. They'll always find something to do better.
That's great, because I also think that bodybuilding gives you like the start to develop that passion that you can then translate to any other aspect of your life.
100%.
There is something that really drives you in the mornings. For me, what your story with the karting was pretty similar, but for me in the football.
Right.
I played football, and it was like, okay, I'm enjoying more the training that I'm doing before in the gym than the football. So it was like, okay, I'm following this. And also like from that passion for bodybuilding, being able to translate that to other aspects of your life. Because I think that something that I've struggled a lot, and this is also something that I want to talk to you about, like your identity in bodybuilding. Because I think that bodybuilding is a sport that is very easy for yourself to identify a lot with, okay, I'm a bodybuilder. And it's like, yes, you are a bodybuilder, but you probably are more things than just a bodybuilder.
Yes.
So I guess the question here is like, would you consider yourself a bodybuilder?
I think it's part of my identity, but I think you're 100% right that you can't just have one thing that you identify with. I think you need to have, if you want to, especially in the natural side of bodybuilding at present, we need to have some other identification. We need to have, the entrepreneur, the businessman kind of identity, as well as being an athlete, because we're not going to make a lot of money just from competing, just from being a bodybuilder. But I think, what I identify myself as now is like, yes, an athlete, a coach, but also someone who's just going to have impact. That's the biggest thing that I want to do now, is I want to use my platform that I've built for many years wisely, and be able to positively impact my niche, because my niche has always been natural bodybuilding. So I think if I was to have one sole identity, it would be natural bodybuilding, because that's my coaching, that's my site, that's my impact, and that's my athletic journey as well. It's like all under that same roof. So for me, that's the biggest thing that I want to have impact on, and I want to just over the course of my time in it, I want to just leave it better than I came into it. If whatever way I can do that, then that's my biggest goal.
Because that's almost like a bigger thing than just being a bodybuilder or a coach or an entrepreneur. It's like something bigger than that has all that. It's like you can be a great bodybuilder, a great athlete, a great coach, a great entrepreneur for you to be able to get the most impact.
I think you've got to almost question, like, I know it sounds a bit it sounds a bit like I'm trying to big up what I want to be, but it's true. Like, people could remember, you know, certain elements of like, okay, you know, British champion, world champion, X amount of times. But I think more people are going to remember impact. More people are going to remember, okay, he did this and he did that for the sport as a whole. He didn't just turn up and, you know, win a title and, you know, go home, or win another world title and go home. It's always there, working away, trying to make something better. You know, and that's not just for my, you know, betterment in terms of myself or like, you know, financially wise or anything like that. Like, it's not just for that. It's just for, you know, satisfaction of actually completing that task, having things in a better place, having more opportunities for athletes, having the sport be more competitive, having, you know, having it at the highest level we could possibly have it. So, you know, yes, that is super important.
That's great. And also that's great because behind the impact in the sport is the impact in the people.
Yeah.
Which is it's like, okay, you winning a championship has an impact for you and for the people surrounding, and maybe someone that sees it and feel inspired for your work and for what you have done.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what has like more impact is like what the people can take out of you. Like, okay, you have created this and this is impacting a lot of people in their life, like directly, and how they do things. And I think that it's like a much stronger connection with you or with me, with the people that's listening to us. Because like, okay, it's not just like I look up to AJ or I look up to HP. It's like, okay, I connect with what they do and with what they are.
That's it. And then that's, you know, that's the power of social media nowadays as well, is that we get such a huge like hit rate amongst the negativity that is sometimes on there, that it's just going to come, you know, like the more followers you get, the more of that you're going to get, bottom line. But, you know, if we can impact, you know, a certain percentage, let's say 10% of our followers, we can impact positively. That's a huge amount of people that are going away from a post or going away from following you for a year with something of substance that's positive for their lives, you know? So yeah, you know, and that's something that I think as I've got a bigger following, I've just treated with more care, you know, thinking, why am I posting this? You know? Am I just posting haphazardly, or am I thinking about what I'm doing? Because people are going to see it. You know, it's not like when you've got 2,000 followers and you're worried that your dad's going to see it or something. It's like you've got, you know, 50 plus thousand or whatever thousand followers there. They're going to, you know, pick up the phone and see what you've posted. And, you know, I think I always just question myself, is there something in there, whether it just be the fact that it's a good set and it might be a bit of an inspiration for someone, or whether it's the fact that in the caption there's something that people can take away. It's like, let's make sure that there's some value being given on a daily basis. And if you do that from day one, then you're going to build a following that's actually genuine and real, you know, rather than, you know, sort of harvested through trying to smash an algorithm. You know? So I think, and with us and with what we do, you know, high quality, you know, premium service in terms of coaching, it is important that our following is of a high quality. And it is important that they're always, you know, they're people that want to improve, and they're people that are probably relatively serious about what they do, in a way, you know, whether they're competitors or not, but they take things seriously, because then they're going to invest in our products and services at some point. And that's important, you know, that's what we use social media for ultimately. And
also, like, going back to what you said about being a coach and an athlete, both of them, I also think that being an athlete is really valuable for you to be a coach and for you to be a better coach, because it gives you like that understanding of, okay, you are doing it, and it kind of, I almost feel like it gives you like a more right to say some things. It was like, okay, I'm telling you this, but I've already done it, or I'm telling you this because I've experienced it and I know how it feels, and I can understand you even more because I understand how you are feeling right now. That's also why I reach out to you for my prep, because actually I being fully honest, I saw a lot of videos of you training, but I hadn't like listening to you like a lot. So I was one day looking at the video that you had in WNBW of contest prep series, and I started watching the first video, and I saw the whole series in the afternoon. So that's something that, yeah, because I'm like, okay, if I find something that I like I go for it. Yeah. So I ended the series and I was like, I need to have AJ like in my side, in my corner, you know? So as I talked to you before with Nick, like, okay, I need Nick for help me with the bracing issue. It was like, okay, I feel really good with Nick. I feel really good with Alex, but I know that AJ has something that will have a huge impact in myself and in my results. And also like, and that comes from not just like the knowledge or what you say in that in those videos, but more for what we were saying, like the personal connection, the connection of, okay, I feel so I feel like I see myself in this person and I want this person to be near me during this whole process, you know?
Yeah. I think that's such an important point, and that whole, you know, thing that you've just mentioned there about being, you know, having some degree of personal connection with whoever is in your corner, whether it be a friend, whether it be a coach, whatever, is so key, because I find that honestly the best results that I've ever had with anyone has been with people that I will be able to be with a show, or I'll be able to sit down with, and I'll just be able to have a great chat with them, and I'll be able to be on like a friendship level. You know, Loz will have noticed that as well with the people that I'll be around at shows. You know, there'll be people that, you know, I just generally just will just have like a laugh with. You know, just sit down and they're chilled, they're relaxed, they're not you know, pacing around, anticipating everything. They're just there, they're just present, because we've built that connection where there's no second doubts about their readiness to compete. There's no second doubts about whether they're going to be on point or not, because we're both on an agreed setup for the pretty much the whole process, the whole way in. So, you know, no, I'm really glad that you've obviously been in that position where you can relate to me, mate. It means a lot. And I think, you know, again, in terms of being in that position as a coach, and, you know, knowing the sort of like, I guess, I think this is a big thing in the industry that I think I'm good at now, and I'm much better than I was like 3 or 4 years ago, is just knowing your strong points and doubling down on them, like doubling down on everything you're good at. So like for me, I think I'm extremely good at prepping natural athletes, and I also think that I'm good at developing relationships with them and the coaching eye aspect, to the point where people will ask me questions about, you know, I got asked this morning a question about rate of loss. And I was like, you know what, like, you know, with someone that's not competed before, when I'm writing out a timeline, I'm not like, this is not some formula I can tell you. This is not something you can put into a spreadsheet and suddenly have the recipe. It's like, this is years of looking at people. This is years of looking at people from point A and then watching the whole process down to point B, and making notes in here or on paper or on a sheet of every single issue or mistake or problem. Do I nail it all the time? No. Have I made mistakes? Yes. Do I learn from them? Yes. And I just get better and better and better. Like, this brain for natural bodybuilding is just constantly troubleshooting everything. It's troubleshooting what didn't get us more muscle or didn't get us into the best shape with the maximum amount of muscle. That's what my brain is constantly troubleshooting. So I think that's why I've doubled down on this. I've just been like, right. And the thing is, I even will do it for other people that I'm not coaching, or other people that I see that I maybe would like to coach. So the whole of last year, I was watching some athletes, and I would watch their whole prep, and I'd try and learn. I'd try and be like, just sit back and kind of be like an armchair, you know, guy in the corner. That I wouldn't say anything. Never say anything. All in my head.
Just
I was
for
logging
you.
it. All in my head. And then it's funny, I had a consult with a guy, and I won't mention names because it's not fair yet. I'll let him post whenever. A couple of weeks back, it's come for coaching, and everything he said in that consult was exactly what I put in my head. the whole prep of his, exactly everything that happened to his physique, the way he looked at the end product was exactly what I had in my head, and he just relayed it all across to me. And this wasn't even like, we had never had a conversation about it, but it's just that eye that I think is and I think the eye for bodybuilding coaching takes such a huge amount of time and like dedication and effort that I think some coaches aren't willing to do that. You know, it's like, you know, how many weeks out was I looking at daily check-ins of like Adam, for example, or, you know, anyone last year that was competing. Yeah. So like Adam's first shows from the heart of England to all the way to the Olympia, every single day we would check in the morning and after training, every single day. So when he didn't get what we wanted at the European, like that set off a chain of what went wrong. So then that whole chain of what went wrong and troubleshooting what went wrong, which I really, in the grand scheme of things, don't think that much went wrong. I think that one was a little bit of a iffy variables at play, but still, and it was a tough lineup. But you know, that made me think, right, okay, right now I'm going to troubleshoot. Now I know who we're going to be up against at the Olympia. Let's make sure that this cannot happen again, and it didn't. You know, so those things take such an element of care and time. And, you know, it's even got to the point where I've doubled down so hard on those things that when someone comes to me with an issue that I know I haven't doubled down on as hard as someone else, maybe it's like a physical limitation, you know, like joint pain, discomfort, an issue like that, I'll reach out to Nick, or I'll reach out to Kyle, to Coach Baxter, and I'll outsource because I've not doubled down on those things. Yeah, these guys have spent years dedicating themselves to that craft, just like I have with my eye and with being at the shows and with understanding the criteria and with understanding what I need to do, where I need to have an athlete. So, you know, I think that's the biggest thing that coaches can do, is really find what they're good at and kind of go all in on that. Because the other little things that make up being a bodybuilding coach, you can get better at them 100%, and you can learn from other people and start to employ that knowledge. Like my training knowledge over the last like 4 or 5 years has like risen dramatically from following the right people and learning more. But, you know, my coaching knowledge has been in the trenches. You know, my actual ability to know what I need to do is in the trenches, is working. Yeah. So I think that's one of the biggest things that over the last like 2-3 years has been pivotal for me.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. That's great. And I also relate a lot to that, especially like finding what you are good at and what you have the most passion of, like what you enjoy the most doing.
Yes. Because
obviously there would be things that maybe you like more or things that you like not as much. And in the past, for me, for example, I've tend to, okay, I'm good at this, let's go into this that I'm weak. Yeah. And like making the mistake of like almost forgetting this that I'm good at. Yeah. And that had me like not enjoying my day because I'm doing something that I'm not good. I'm going to improve, but I'm not doing what I really want. So it's like, okay, you have both things or a lot of things. Go into what you are good. Also try to keep improving what you are not good, but like almost like value yourself and value what you are good at. Like the security with how you said, like you are a very good coach. Yeah. It's like, you are allowed to say that if you feel that. Yeah. You know, it's like if you feel, and also and also you feel that and you say that because it's really in you. It's something that it's not something that you are saying that because like to impress anyone. It's like that's for you. Yeah. And that's really valuable, and that's really like really strong, I think. Yeah.
I like, for me, I've got to a point where I don't need, you know, people to say it to me. I don't need people to give me, you know, a gold star when I get a good placing or when I do well. I don't need that. I like, without sounding like a dick, I know it. You know, I know it, and that's all that I need is this deep belief that I've got that skill. And you know, I think that can stand up against anything, really. You know, not to the point where you become so, you know, cocky or anything like that, to the point where you're not willing to learn. I'm always willing to learn. Yeah. And you know, I'm willing to ask any questions and figure out and troubleshoot if I need to. But yeah, at the same time, like I think that was another Gary Vee thing that just like got really sort of like dug into my head was he always said, double down on what you're strong at and, don't give a shit about what you're weak at. He's like really point blank. He's like not trying to improve the not so good stuff. He's like, don't give a shit about it. I don't think that's true for coaching, but I think that an essence of that is key because I see a lot of people trying to be everything. So trying to be this, and add all of these things up. But in reality, I don't think you can. I don't think you can. I think you've got to learn from the fact that if you look at the top coaches in the world in specifically bodybuilding, like what are they strong at? What are they strong at? I think they're really strong at building relationships. And I think they're really good at coaching, being a coach, like the coaching eye, and knowing how to work with that athlete from a communication standpoint. I think that's what they're really, really good at. Because I don't see a huge amount of the coaches at the top with like, ridiculous, I mean like the depth of acumen that we've got some of the coaches at the moment, like, which is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. But you just don't see a huge amount of that because I think some of the coaches that are so deep in the acumen side of things are not quite as strong. They might be strong, but they're not quite as strong at the very ones at the top in terms of communication, in terms of developing a really, really good solid relationship, maybe in terms of care, and then maybe in terms of the coaching eye. And that's what I've just seen anecdotally from like I said, just analyzing what happens when you get really, really good. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to follow suit with. It's just being that person that kind of cares more, has a better eye, and is able to communicate really well. And that's really it.
And just to finish this, I want to like what you said of not being cocky, because you are always willing to improve. It's like I feel that's the reason why you can say with that confidence that I'm really good at this, because you know that you are always evolving, learning more, improving. It's not like you are here sitting down and I'm saying, okay, I'm the best one. Because it's like, there is something that you can improve even more, something to learn, something to, as you said, like looking for other coaches. Okay, why these coaches are that successful? Like, why is this?
It always intrigues me.
But at the same time, that's what gives you that security for you to say, I'm the best coach. Or like, I'm a really good coach. Or I'm super secure of, okay, this athlete comes in, I'm really secure that he's going to be at his 100% on the stage. Because you know yourself and like you are constantly growing and evolving.
Yeah, I do. And, it's just that the confidence in your approach and the way that you do things, and knowing that, like, when you look at what an athlete gets from myself, for example, I said this again to Loz the other day, I did a setup video, and I always say I watch back at least the first 10 minutes of a setup video, and I listen to it, and I say to myself, would I like to be coached by this person? Does he sound excited? Does he sound motivated? Does he sound like he has direction? And if I do, and most of the time, 99% of the time, I will look back at that video and I'll be like, damn, like I wish this guy was like holding the ship up for me, because he sounds like he's really like raring to go. And I think that's a lot of the time, like 90% of what's going to make up that result with that client is whether you're both on the same page, you're both excited to get after it, and you have direction, and you have a clarity of the goals that you got ahead of you, and then the rest will come to fruition. So that's something that I think is just such a huge key as a coach. I know we've touched on that a lot now, but just that positive affirmation with yourself every single day. And then if it's not positive, find out why it isn't. If you keep giving yourself crap and telling yourself that you're not good enough or that other people are better, like why? Find out why they're better. And then if they're better for a reason, then try and be as good as them. And then if it's just time you need to be better. And I'm conscious that I'm only going to get better with time, because there's a lot of coaches that I would deem as people that have had maybe more success on paper than me, but they've been doing it for longer. So just need more time.
Great. Awesome. Awesome. I think this is a huge, like, really good part to leave, like, the long conversation here. And I'm going to tell you some quick questions.
Of course.
So I have here some questions. The first question is like, what's, if there is one, the set that you are most proud of?
Good question. There's probably quite a few, to be honest. Or funnily enough, all of them are either like all of them are legs, to be honest. Like, there's definitely I don't think there's any press that I'm particularly super proud of at the moment. So yeah, probably some of my most recent hack sets where I've taken anywhere between 6 and 5 each side for a low rep set. Probably some of those are some of the most well performed but also heaviest loading sets. I think in terms of true challenge and the amount of time that it took me to actually get to it as well was the 180 for 20 back squat, because nothing compares to that. Nothing, like, not the 5 plates for 20 on the 5 plates for 20 on the hack was just easy in comparison. The 180 for 20 on the back squat was just unbelievably tough, because you'd get to 10 and the bar is crushing your upper back. It's like you can't breathe or brace properly anymore. You're just literally just trying to just keep going. So that one was probably the hardest and the most rewarding when I got it done. Whether it's worth it from a hypertrophy perspective, God only knows. But it was fun.
But it's done,
it was fun in the moment. And then, like, pulls wise, probably a 260 double or 220 for 10 on conventionals, something like that. But again, there's a lot of things that are left to be boxed off, but some of those are probably some of my best so far.
Great. Awesome. Is it true that you don't take caffeine in off season for training?
I do intake caffeine, just not a lot of it.
Okay.
So, like, I mean, we've got massive coffee here at the moment. So, I tend to stay clear of, like, high stim pre's. And now the only reason behind that is just because my body weight's higher. So when I'm going into the session already, my resting heart rate is, pretty high. So if I'm skyrocketing it up with a high stim pre, I can't focus, and then I can't breathe on leg training. And then, I'm already not that fit in the peak off season anyway. So adding on top of that high stim pre just ruins recovery, and it ruins the session. And I can't eat afterwards either. So it's like,
it doesn't make sense to have.
If you've ever been, to the person asking the question, if you've ever been at peak body weight and, taken a high stim pre, you'll probably know what it feels like to do that. So it's just a case of probably lowering them a little bit and maybe focusing on, like, non-stims and off season.
Great. What's the lowest you've been in food in your hardest prep?
Off memory, I think it was probably maybe like 1,400, 1,500 on a rest day. Do you think that's about right, or was it a bit less than that? Okay, maybe it was less than that. There was definitely some days where I was probably a little bit less than that, but not for a very long period. There was some rest days where I wouldn't have, it would just be like protein, vegetables, 30, 35 fat maybe. And then I think there were a few days where it literally was just protein, vegetable. There was no carbs at all at the end of the day. And that was also on top of, like, double cardio. So that to that degree, that point, it wasn't really necessary. That was really just sort of digging a hole deeper than I needed to, which is something that I need to rectify when I go down again. Is I always, when I get ready, I'm always like, there's more. That's because I always have this fear that I'm, like, not going to be ready. And, I've stepped on stage in 2020 in condition that I deem as not quite ready enough. And I just never wanted to experience that again. So it makes me feel like I'd rather eat less and
go to the side.
And, like, which is just counterintuitive. But next time I will not be doing that, and I'll have the right balance between everything. Basically coach myself how I would coach an athlete, coach myself right. So but that was probably the lowest food. But the thing is, I say this all the time, hunger is often a mindset. You know, if you tell yourself 24/7 you're hungry, you're gonna be ravenous. If you tell yourself you're fine and that the amount of food you're on is okay, and that you're still, you're still gonna be alive. You know, nothing's gonna happen to you. Like, yes, you're gonna feel a little bit like tired, and yes, it's gonna affect your recovery post contest. But if you're doing what needs to be done to achieve the deficit required, you just got to do it. What's the other choice? So that's how I kind of like manage those days when the food does get quite low.
Yeah, I also like to that. Like, I prefer not to know in the calories where I'm at.
That's what I did.
Like, in both sides, if I'm eating a lot or if I'm eating like too low, because if you are like eating 7K, you have like related, like, okay, over 4K is quite a lot of food.
Yes.
And lower than 2K is pretty low. So I prefer to just have the food, eat the food, and that's it.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more with that. Yeah, that's a good mindset to have.
Okay, and the last question. This is an interesting one. We have 3 people. We have Cuba, Alex, and I.
Okay.
You have to kill someone, marry someone, and have sex with someone.
Oh, Christ, man. Oh, Christ. I could take such a variety of options here. So it's... I'm really sorry, but I've had the least interaction with Alex. And I love him, but I'm going to have to kill him for the fact that I've had the least interaction. I have to marry you, unfortunately, mate. I think we'd be the best together, and I think I'd have to, unfortunately, fuck Cuba, which I think would be would probably be like, I'd probably have to kill myself afterwards.
Yeah. This for the clip for Cuba to show just the clip.
But yeah, fucking hell. No, that would be the option.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Okay, man. So yeah, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for this conversation, and
let's over there like imagining that happening.
But yeah, it's been huge. This conversation have you here.
It's a pleasure, man.
And looking forward to keep seeing your progress as an athlete and as a coach, which is really inspiring.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you so much for your time, man.
It's a pleasure, dude. Like I said, I hope everyone that listened kind of liked it, and I'm sure we'll hook up for some more in the future.
Yeah.
All right.